Okay, it's Mrs. Beaulieu here, and I am unable to hold class today on Tuesday, November 17th, because I have got to go to a doctor's appointment. It's the only time he could see me for the next 2 weeks, so I'm going. But I thought I would work through this quiz with you, 4.2 gum quiz, the compound subjects, just so that you understand exactly what we're looking for. You know from yesterday's assignment that the subject is the person, place, or the thing that is doing the action, right? And so we're simply in question number 1 going to find out what is the subject, what is the action verb, what is the linking verb, what is a prepositional phrase. And it's important to note that a prepositional phrase always ends with a noun, always. And then a dependent clause has a verb and a subject in it, but it does not make sense on its own. So our subject here is the person, place, or thing doing the action. When the knight is captured, he is condemned to death. The subject here is going to be he. And his main action is condemned. He is condemned. And this, even though it has is in it, which could be a linking verb, it is not a linking verb. It is simply the is helping out the word condemned. So that makes this an action verb. And we know the subject is number 1. Now, when the knight is captured, what could it be here? You notice there are only 4 choices, but there are 5 options for each part. So one of these is not going to be in an answer. We have to death, and we have when the knight is captured. So whenever we see the word to, we think it's either a prepositional phrase or it is an infinitive form of a verb. So is death something you do? No, you die, but death here is a noun form. Therefore, this has to be a prepositional phrase. So this one's number 4. And then when the knight is captured, do you see how there's the knight is a subject word, and he is captured is a verb, but it does not make sense on its own. It depends on the rest of the sentence, this part right here. He is condemned to death. Therefore, this one is going to be a dependent clause. It can't live on its own. Okay? Skill comes in right now. First of all, we've been working with basic, simple sentences. And that means that we've had one subject doing one verb. And that's perfectly fine. It's one way to write a sentence. But you can also mix it up a little. We can add a second subject and have them doing the same verb at the same time, and then we have a compound subject. That's 2 or more doing one action. In fact, we could get really fancy. We could even add a third one or a fourth one. And all along we got whatever these things are, they're all doing just this one verb action. It's a compound subject doing one action. We can say that both Jaden and Kateri shared the banana, and then we have a compound subject. Notice they're doing the same exact verb. They're sharing their verb. Another example, also a compound subject, is if we expanded it to include the girl's sister, Mila. And now we have 3 people shared the banana, also a compound subject. You can also easily create a compound verb sentence that is still going to be a simple sentence. And this is when you have one subject, but this one subject, person, place, or thing is doing or in the state of existence of 2 different items. So our example here would be Milo. He did 2 things. What did he do? He sang and he danced. you could also add a third verb and still maintain your compound status with Milo being the subject. What did he do? He did 3 things. He sang, danced, and went. And he went home late. So in sentence or question number 2, which one has a compound subject? We're going to look at this first one. Queen Guinevere and her handmaids, ooh, that's 2 people, is it's the main subject, intercede on his behalf and ask the queen or the king to allow the queen to pass judgment upon him. This one has 2 subjects, Queen Guinevere and the handmaids. This one, the queen tells the knight that he will be spared his life if he can discover for her what it is that women most desire. That only has 1 subject doing 1 action. And then this third sentence. The knight was allowed a year and a day in which to roam wherever he pleased and return with an answer. So the subject is knight, and he was allowed. This action verb was allowed. So that's the best answer there. Okay, so for number 3, we're looking for a compound verb. So just 1 subject doing more than 1 verb. So everywhere the knight went, he explained his predicament to the women he met and asked their opinion. Okay, so he, the knight, and this part right here is just an introductory clause. What did he do? He explained his predicament to all the women, but what else did he do? He also asked, and is a clue here. So we've got 1 subject, he, explained and asked. That's 2 verbs. But no 2 of those answered the same. No. The answers range, and then this is prepositional phrases. They are close or sexual pleasure. Yep, that's 1 subject and 1 verb. When at last the time comes for him to return to the court, that's an introductory dependent clause. The main verb or the main subject is he, and what does he do? He lacks the answer. So this is your best answer for number 3. Okay, remember we're looking for the subject of a sentence. We try really hard not to get caught up with thinking that it's at the very beginning of a sentence, because it's not. Outside a castle in the woods, those are prepositional phrases. They're only opening a sentence. There's no verb there. There's no subject doing it. It's just telling us where something is happening, right? Now we're getting to the main part of the sentence. He sees, what does he see? 24 maidens dancing and singing. Okay, so the subject is he, and he's got a simple verb, sees. Number 5. What is the subject of this sentence? Again, don't get caught up thinking the very first noun that you run into is the subject, because it's not. This when he approaches is a dependent clause. See, there's a subject in it, he, and approaches is the verb, but it doesn't make sense on its own. Therefore, it's not a whole sentence. It's depending on this part. They disappear as if by magic. So your main subject is they. And what are they doing? Disappearing. Number 6. What is the subject of this sentence? An old, ugly woman is the only one left in the clearing in the woods. Is your main verb, and woman is the one doing the action of existing. 7. What is the subject of the sentence? The knight explains the problem to the old woman, comma, who is wise and may know the answer to the question about what women really want. This whole thing from who is wise, all of this these are descriptive words telling us more about the old woman. So we can actually ignore those words. We're only looking for the main subject and the main verb. What is going on here? Well, the knight is explaining. What is he explaining? He's explaining a problem. But see, this is also a prepositional phrase, and we can cross that off. Number 8. Identify the compound subject in the sentence. Bacon and eggs were served for breakfast. Bacon and eggs are the subject. The verb, action verb, they were served for breakfast, prepositional phrase. Okay, for number 9, make sure that you always read the instructions carefully. Here we're looking for a compound subject in the sentence, okay? The sentence is, at a jousting tournament in 14th century Europe, William Thatcher, Rowland, and Watt discover that their master, Sir Ecke, has died. Well, we know that the beginning part, at a jousting tournament, it's just a prepositional phrase, just saying where it is, so we can ignore that. And we also know that this part, in 14th century Europe, that also is just a prepositional phrase, setting up the situation. So we can ignore both of those. This is where it gets a little tricky, though, because we got a lot of nouns, and any of them could be the subject, these 3 or this, or Ector. Well, what's really happening? Well, these 3 guys, William Thatcher, Rowland, and Watt, discover, all 3 of them compound, they share this verb that they're discovering. What did they discover? They discovered Sir Ector has died. Now, one way to be clear and know that a noun, this noun, Sir Ector, is not the main verb, is to realize that whenever you see the word that, you're probably going to have a dependent clause. Let's see. Does this make sense on its own? That their master, Sir Ector, has died. No, it doesn't. It's depending on the rest of the sentence to make sense. And the subject inside of one of these dependent clauses can never be the main subject of the sentence. So our best bet is to go with C. And the last question, the compound subject. Rowland and Watt would rather take their winnings and leave, but William convinces them to stay and train him. Okay, William and Watt are 2 people, 2 subjects, and they're actually doing 2 things. They would, helping verb, leave, or they'd rather take and leave. But see, we're looking for the compound subject, so it can't be the compound verb. And then William is a single subject of a different clause. And what does he do? He convinces. So your best answer is that one. I hope this was helpful. I hope you worked your way through it and learned something. Please